And so you come in and you turn on a light and you kiss their little forehead, and then you help them go back to sleep. Darkness is the absence of light. It's not what you can see, it's what you don't see. And when it is so dark that you cannot see your own hand, darkness becomes something that you can actually feel. Darkness is mentioned 200 times in the Bible. It's used as a way to describe what life is without God. Scary thought. When you live without God's love, when you choose your own path rather than God's way, what ends up happening is you end up in a dark place. In other words, until we grasp the extent of the darkness in this world, we will never celebrate the light of Christmas. So we're going to focus for the next these three Sundays and then Christmas Eve, 4 messages. We're going to talk about Christmas lights. And before we talk about the light in the weeks to come, let's kind of introduce the theme this morning and recognize the darkness that surrounds you and me. To some extent, our eyes have already adjusted to the darkness here, and we've adjusted to the darkness out there. I mean, you know how it is. You hear about another murder almost every day, another missing child, and we lay on the couch unemotional because we've become used to the dark. A coworker is arrested for domestic violence. A high school student, college student commits suicide. Maybe they're arrested for some kind of violence. A fatal car accident has caused a traffic jam up ahead, and we're having to wait on the interstate for hours. And frankly, we're only concerned about one thing. We're running late. And the reason we don't notice the darkness is because we are a part of the darkness. See, what scares me the most is my own darkness. Did I really just speak with that tone to my spouse? Did I really let my eyes watch that? Did I let my mind think that? Did I really just cheat on that test? I knew better than that. Did last night even happen? And where did that come from anyway? How did it happen? Are you ever surprised by the darkness inside of you? I mean, as a Christian? See, I'm not a child anymore, but let me tell you, I'm still afraid of the dark. I mean, you sit next to your spouse at home. You've had an argument, another foolish, ridiculous argument. Maybe you've been hurt, or you feel unloved, you feel disrespected by your spouse, and you kind of turn your backs on each other and you give each other the silent treatment. Now, you could put your hand gently on your spouse and say, I'm sorry, that was silly. I love you. Let's work through this. But instead, we'll choose darkness. That's just the way it works. Darkness has always been there. You felt it as a child when you lied to your parents about knocking over the vase and they ask you who did it. You felt it when you put the lifesavers in your pocket at the grocery store. No child, by the way, you don't have to teach a child, this is how you stick out your tongue. They just know how to do it. You don't have to teach a child, here's how you throw a temper tantrum. Let me have you learn to say no. No, there's this tendency in all of us, but here's the problem, it becomes progressive. Darkness grows until it overtakes the light. When Jesus was arrested to be crucified, Jesus said this in Luke 22, verse 53, this is your moment when the power of darkness reigns. And when darkness reigns, I mean we are just capable of doing almost anything. Some of you thought you could control the darkness in your life. That little corner of the thing we struggle with a bit, maybe. But what you found out is that the darkness always takes you further than you thought you would go. You never intended to go that far, but it always takes you farther than you thought it would go. It takes you maybe from yelling at your kids to striking your son or daughter. It goes from just a few drinks with friends to where you can't go a day without drinking too much. It goes from looking at a few pictures in some magazine to sitting hours online looking at graphic images. It takes you from hiding just a few dollars out of petty cash, and before you know it, you've embezzled thousands of dollars. It goes from just a little shopping spree to major credit card debt that's going to put the family in trouble for years. That's how darkness takes over. It's like a child who wakes up in the dark, alone and afraid and uncertain. And so our first response and our only hope is to cry out. Do we have any hope in the darkness as we reach out to our Father? And I bring you good news of great joy today that you've heard already through the kids today, that Christmas is God's answer to that darkness. And we've come here in these weeks to celebrate the fact that God himself came into this dark world with the light of his Son, Jesus Christ. Good morning. Now you got to adjust back, don't you? It's a very interesting thing. I want to talk with you today about the light of hope. Next week about the light of love. The next week the light of joy and love and peace. As we celebrate those things together, let's begin to talk about the hope that we can have into the dark world. Let's begin in John chapter 9. If you have your Bibles, the Gospel of John, the fourth book in the New Testament. We'll have the scriptures on the screen if you have a Bible app. John chapter 1 verse 9 says, "The one who is the true light, who gives light to everyone, was coming into the world." So into this dark world, a light has broken through. And he's given us this love we're going to talk about. And